Sawadee-krap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and we're studying Chapter 5 of this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is the real heart of the book, Chapter 4 and 5. This is where you're learning the Eightfold Path. Chapter 4, last week, we studied the Four Noble Truths, which is helping you to understand the problem in the unenlightened mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And the path forward is the Eightfold Path. This is the path to enlightenment. So if somebody was interested in getting to this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy that is the enlightened mind, they would need to know the Eightfold Path inside and out, backwards and forwards. At the very beginning of the group learning program, I did a 3-part series where I dove into each section of the Eightfold Path one by one. And that way we were able to really penetrate deeply into the Eightfold Path and help students have a very deep understanding of this path. And now here in Chapter 5, what I'm going to be doing is going back into it, but kind of more of an overview of the entire path, from right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So if you haven't studied the Eightfold Path in depth, it's great that you're here for this particular class because you're going to get an overview of it, but you're going to need to go in and actually study it in detail, whether it's in the book, the audio book, the previous classes that I taught. You're going to need to know this inside and out and most likely revisit it multiple times. There's students here that are attending class today that have studied this with me multiple times, but you're learning and you're tweaking and you're getting more and more detail of the Eightfold Path all the time as you're developing your practice. So I'd like to welcome you, whether you're joining for the first time or you've been joining regularly. Welcome to everyone that's here in class today. I know we've got people on Facebook, YouTube, and Zoom, so welcome to everybody. We're going to start our class with meditation like we typically do, and then afterwards we'll move into discussing the Eightfold Path. If you'd like to join for meditation, you might pull up a meditation cushion or a chair. You can sit on the floor or sit in a chair. Of course, there's 4 different positions: seated, lying, standing, and walking. But typically students are learning in the seated position, but you could also use the lying or standing position as well. And we're going to be talking about those as we get deeper into Chapter 11. And I've taught these to a certain degree when we were having that 4-part series on breathing mindfulness meditation. I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, which you're welcome to join along in. Just remember, this isn't a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. It's just to help ease the mind into meditation. That these chants were actually used during the lifetime of the Buddha for various reasons. The primary reason was to commit the teachings to memory. So there's nothing mystical or magical about the chants. After the chants, I'm going to provide some guidance, and then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And that's where we'll start our class with learning the Eightfold Path. So feel free to join along in the chants and take a position whichever is comfortable for you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Hotang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti Pisu Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rukavito Anutero Purisa Dhammasati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Once the breath is well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโหตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามาสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังโหโตภาควาติ If you'd like to slowly make your way out of meditation, I'd like to once again welcome everyone who's joining us, whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or maybe you're watching this on the replay or listening on the podcast. Welcome to everyone. Today's class is all about Chapter 5, which is titled The Eightfold Path, the path for all humans to enlightenment. This is where you're learning each individual factor of the path to enlightenment. And the Buddha is helping you to understand what it takes to actually move the mind to this enlightened mental state. This class of learning the Eightfold Path really started last week with Chapter 4 because right view is the first step of the Eightfold Path. And it's so important to establish right view as you're making your way to this enlightened mental state where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy permanently, no longer experiencing any discontent feelings. You would need to establish right view as the very first step on the Eightfold Path, because everything else that the Buddha taught, whether it's the Eightfold Path or any of the other teachings that connect into it, it's all based upon right view. So this Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that everything else is plugging into. And while I taught right view very thoroughly last week, this week I'm just going to kind of refresh you a little bit and then move right into right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This Eightfold Path is organized into 3 sections. There's the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and the mental discipline section. And you'll see why it's laid out that way, because you're going to need to practice all 8 factors in order to get to enlightenment. You're not practicing one and mastering it before you move on to the other. You're actually practicing them all simultaneously. It's kind of like if you were trying to get a really good quality sound out of your speakers, you would kind of tweak these 8 dials trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. And the same thing is true about the mind, that as you tweak these 8 factors and you learn them closer and closer and you bring them into your life more and more closely, you'll notice the quality of your mind improving. And this is where the focus, the concentration, the clarity, the deep memory, and all the other benefits of attaining enlightenment are experienced as you're dialing this in closer and closer. So as you know from previous classes, you don't believe any of these teachings. You learn them, reflect on them, and practice them. So do that as you're learning these teachings today. And I'll help you as we go, but always keep that in mind that you're on your own independent journey, looking to get the wisdom to be able to see the truth. You're not believing what I share, but you're learning it, investigating and examining it. You're reflecting on it to independently verify it, and then you're practicing it, integrating it into your life so that you can transform your mind more and more. So last week, we talked about right view, and I shared with you the 3 universal truths and the 4 noble truths. Here, this is the part of the Eightfold Path where the Buddha is explaining that right view is the 4 noble truths. So these are his words where he says, in what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, in the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view. So here he's pointing to the 4 noble truths and he's saying that is right view. But you would need to go investigate the 4 noble truths in order to understand what they are, because this is a standalone teaching that's quite extensive that you would need to learn by itself. So underneath of this line here, I've got the top section of the 4 noble truths, and it goes on from here. But I just put this top section to help you build confidence that what the Buddha is saying in the Eightfold Path is that the 4 noble truths is right view, that he's pointing to that and saying that's what you need to learn in order to establish right view. Well, first, last week, I shared with you the 3 universal truths about the universal truth of impermanence, discontentedness, and non-self. And you're going to need to know these really closely in order to understand the 4 noble truths, because these are building blocks to help you understand the 4 noble truths, where you're learning about everything in the world around you is impermanent, that your mind in the unenlightened state is experiencing discontentedness, conditioned feelings, where the mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition, where you're experiencing pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant feelings. These are conditioned feelings. This is the problem, where the mind is going up and down in the unenlightened state, that it can't be peaceful and joyful permanently because it's basing its inner feelings on some condition. That if it's sunny outside, you'll get happy, but then when it rains, you'll get sad or frustrated. Or if your bank account balance is a certain amount, you'll be happy, but then if it goes down, you'll be sad or frustrated. Or any other number of conditions that you might have. If your mom or dad does this, you'll be happy. If they don't do that, you'll be sad or frustrated. If the world is experiencing certain things, you'll be happy. But if there's certain other things going on in the world, you'll be sad or frustrated or agitated. This is the whole problem, that the mind in the unenlightened state's going up and down and up and down. And then we talked about the universal truth of non-self, where you're learning about not to cling to the self-image or the self-identity. That clinging to the body or clinging to the mind is just going to produce discontentedness, that this body isn't you, this mind isn't you. And you can see that very clearly by independently verifying the universal truth of non-self and all these other universal truths. You can independently verify the teachings of the Buddha so that you can acquire wisdom and now navigate the world more readily. So even though you're learning these teachings, you're not going to be able to instantly implement them and instantly experience significant results. You need to gradually train the mind and gradually awaken to the wisdom of the Buddha and gradually implement these teachings into your life. And this is part of that gradual learning, is understanding the 3 universal truths. Then I shared with you the definition of craving, desire, attachment, this mental longing, strong eagerness, the mind pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection. We use craving, desire, attachment, but expectations, wants, holding, grasping, clinging, or other ways to explain this. Essentially what it is it's the mind's unquenchable thirst, where the mind thinks that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. This is what craving, desire, attachment is. Then I shared with you the 4 noble truths, explaining the problem in the unenlightened mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So you'll need to understand this if you haven't already, that the problem in the unenlightened mind is discontentedness. That's the first noble truth. The cause of that problem is the second noble truth. The cause of the up and down in the mind is craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. That if the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings. This is the whole cause of the problem, the craving, the desire, the attachment, the longing, the yearning. And you can see that through your own independent verification, that in certain situations where you've gotten angry and frustrated, you can see that if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy and excited. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you got this anger, sadness, or frustration. And then you might have pushed people away out of your life. You might have been bitter, harsh, and hostile towards them, or you might have put your expectations on them, trying to control them. So as long as you don't understand the cause of this discontentedness and this problem, you wouldn't ever be able to fix it. So this is where you can have a real breakthrough by understanding the second noble truth, that the cause of these feelings are within your own mind. That oftentimes with a lack of wisdom, when the mind has wrong view, it blames other people for your discontent feelings. I know that we've all been in arguments where we've been adamantly trying to convince somebody else how what they are doing are making us angry and they need to stop doing what they are doing. But this isn't true reality. This is the mind having its misunderstanding. And this is why when the mind lacks wisdom, it will push people away, or it'll push a situation away, because it falsely perceives the problem to be external, or the cause of the problem to be external. But you know that that isn't the true cause of the problem, because when you push people away or you push a situation out of your life, it's only a matter of time before you get angry or irritated or annoyed about something else. If it was that person or that situation that was the true cause of the problem, when you push people away, you would notice that the problem would be solved, that you would no longer experience any discontent feelings. But because the problem is not yet solved and you haven't really understood the true cause, when you push those people away, you still get irritated or annoyed or frustrated or something else. Or when you've been bitter, harsh, and hostile towards people, the same thing is true. It doesn't actually solve the problem, because that's like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear them into doing things your way. Or putting your expectations on people. It hasn't solved the problem. This is why the mind is just stuck in this continuous cycle of experiencing anger and frustration over and over and over again, because it hasn't really understood the true cause of the problem, which is craving, desire, attachment. The third noble truth is explaining the elimination of this problem, that you need to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And the fourth noble truth is explaining the way to eliminate all the problem of the mind and the causes is the Eightfold Path. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete, perfect plan that's going to completely eradicate and eliminate all the cravings, desires, attachments in the mind. And this is why after you establish right view, you would like to then move in to understanding the Eightfold Path and learning this more and more closely. But you need to establish right view where you can see very clearly through your own direct experience, and maybe even other people around you, you can see it with them too, that the mind's craving, desire, attachment is causing its own discontentedness. That's what right view is having the right view that it's your own mind, it's your own craving, desire, attachment that's causing this. Wrong view would be to blame other people. And as you blame other people, you're just going to stay stuck in the same problems over and over, because it's not other people that are causing the difficulties and struggles that you're experiencing in life. So as long as you're not understanding what the true problem is, you'll keep experiencing those problems over and over. But when you experience the acquiring of wisdom to know what is the true problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward, now you can have this breakthrough to establish right view. So then after you understand right view, you move into right intention, which some people translate as right thinking or right thought, because this is how your mind needs to be thinking. There's three aspects to right intention, where the Buddha teaches about the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. What renunciation is where the mind has an interest and willingness to let go and give up its unwholesomeness, the mind's false beliefs and false perceptions, its confusion, its misunderstandings. Whereas if you experience anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings, that means your mind doesn't have full wisdom. You haven't attained final knowledge. So therefore, there are certain things that are in your mind that are false beliefs, they're misperceptions, they're misunderstandings. And if you just held on to those and you weren't willing to practice the intention of renunciation, then you'll never solve the problem. So you're going to need to have this intention of renunciation where you're willing to let go. You're willing to have an open mind and learn new things. And you're going to need to get rid of these false beliefs. But you're not getting rid of false beliefs by replacing it with new beliefs. That's why the teachings of the Buddha, they're not based in belief. Because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. So you're working to acquire wisdom through learning, reflecting, and practicing. And when you see the wisdom of true reality and you've awoken to that wisdom, now these false beliefs, you move them out. And one of the first false beliefs that you're going to need to eliminate is that other people are causing you to be angry and frustrated and irritated and annoyed. You're going to need to see through right view, the Four Noble Truths, that it's your own mind that's causing this. And when you can see that and you see the wisdom in it, you realize, oh my goodness, I've been believing all my life that other people are causing me to be angry, when in reality, it's my own mind. So now you have more wisdom. But if you didn't practice the intention of renunciation, you wouldn't be willing to look at that and figure out whether that's actually true or false. So you're going to need this intention of renunciation, not just as it relates to right view, but many false beliefs and misunderstandings and misperceptions and confusions that the mind has, that you need to be able to practice this intention of renunciation to let go. And then you'll need the intention of non-ill will, which non-ill will is a double negative. Ill will is animosity, bitterness, anger, hatred, ill will, the frustration, the agitation, the annoyance, all those lesser versions. So non-ill will is the opposite of that. It's goodwill. So you would like to have the intention of goodwill towards other beings, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You're going to need to acquire the intention or the thinking or the thought that you're interested in seeing others be well. Whereas if you have ill will, you're going to want to go in there and turn people's screws and, try to maybe irritate them or annoy them or frustrate them, even though you can't do it. It's their own cravings, desires, attachments that's doing it. But you might be interested to go in there and kind of mess with people, right? And kind of tweak them, be sarcastic to them, try to see what kind of frustration can arise in their mind. So you're going to need to get to the point where you have this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well and be harmonious together. And then this is coupled with the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested in causing harm to other beings. You're incapable of causing harm to others. Because what you start to learn on this path is any harm that you put out, it's just going to come back to you. That when you put out bitterness, hostility, aggression, this is all just going to come back to you. So by you cultivating a mind with the intention or the thinking or the thought of harmlessness, you're disinterested in causing harm to others because you just know that that harm is going to come back to you. It's kind of like if you were to kick up the sand and the wind was blowing, it's just going to blow that sand back in your eyes. So you learn not to kick up sand because it's just going to blow back into your eyes. So you would like to get to the point where you realize anything that you put out is just going to come back to you. So why even kick up the sand? Why cause harm to others when it's just going to come back to you? So this is right view and right intention, where right view is helping you to understand the Four Noble Truths and accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, your actions, accepting responsibility and accountability for the thoughts and feelings, the things that you're experiencing in your own mind and in your own life, because oftentimes we are blaming other people for what we're experiencing. So the Four Noble Truths is helping you see that your mind is causing your own discontentedness because of craving, desire, attachment. But also you need to extend that beyond that, where you can see through the natural law of karma, which we're going to be studying in chapter 9, that anything you experience in life is a result of decisions that you're making. As long as you blame other people for the things that you're experiencing, you'll never be able to fix it because it's everyone else's fault and the mind's blaming everybody else. This path isn't about fault or blame or anything like that. It's about being able to see true reality. And if you can see true reality that the decisions that you make lead to a certain result, well, if there's something in your life that you don't particularly care for, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and then you experience different results. Whereas if everything in your life is being caused by other people, now you have no ability to actually solve anything that's going on in your life. But if you can see the true reality that it's just a matter of cultivating wisdom, making different decisions, then you can experience different results. You can change what you're experiencing in life. So this is very empowering that you can see like, oh my goodness, I can change any aspect of my life that I'm interested in changing. But again, if you just blamed other people, if you didn't establish right view, you would kind of resign yourself to everything that I experience is because of everybody else. So you can kind of take charge of your life through understanding the Four Noble Truths and then taking responsibility and accountability for your feelings, intentions, speech, and actions. And then right intention is having the intention of renunciation, willingness to let go and give up the confusion and misunderstanding of the mind, practicing non-ill will or loving kindness, this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, and practicing harmlessness, where you're disinterested and incapable of causing harm to other beings. So let me see what questions you guys have here on this first section, and then we're going to move into the moral conduct. You can put this into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. I see some questions coming in here in Zoom. We have some from Yusef. About right view, I know that all discontentedness is created by my own mind, and it doesn't exist outside the mind. But I still can eliminate the discontentedness that is related to my relationship with other beings. I still have discontentedness that is caused by the mind feeling that it causes discomfort to others when I communicate with them. I still fear others and can cultivate harmony with other beings. Example could be if I want to talk to strangers, I find it difficult as if there are boundaries between us, or if I want to talk to girl mates in my college, I feel that I'm causing them discomfort, that making me unable to make friends with them. Okay, so I see you have another question here too, Yusef. So you need to be able to deeply soak in right view within your own mind that you are causing your own discontent feelings, but you also need to understand that as it relates to others too, that if they are experiencing discontentedness, it's being caused by their own mind, by their own craving, desire, attachment. So if you'd like to talk to other people, just talk to other people. If they're experiencing discontentedness and they don't understand that they're causing their own discontentedness and they choose to walk away from you or not be around you, then so be it. If you don't grab on and you don't cling on to this person wanting to talk to them so bad, when somebody chooses to walk away from you or chooses not to talk with you, then you can be completely comfortable with that. So when I walk down the street, I smile at people, I say hello, things like this. Sometimes people smile back, sometimes they don't. That's impermanence. Sometimes they say hello back, sometimes they don't. So if you're not wanting something from this other person and you're just practicing to be loving and warm and kind and gentle and respectful, whatever other people choose to do, that's their choice. You can't control what they choose to do. All you can do is control your own mind and don't base your inner feelings based on what they're choosing to do. So if they choose to smile, fine. If they choose not to smile, that's fine too. That's their choice. They choose to talk with you. They choose not to talk with you. That's fine. Not everyone's going to choose to actually talk with you. So you're going to need to let go of any expectation of how somebody else should conduct themselves when you say hello or when you talk with people. All right, so let's see. Oh, and the other thing I should share here with you, Yusuf, is that I don't suggest you look at people you don't know as strangers. This is a common word that is used. But one of the things you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're changing your perspective of how you look at the world. Oftentimes people are taught that strangers are bad, right? And if you maintain that perspective, you're looking at yourself as a stranger, that you're now talking to this person and now you are a stranger and they're going to relate to you in an unkind way. So just think about it as this is a person you don't know yet. Think about it as this is a family member, because oftentimes we've been reborn many times. And all these different countless rebirths, the Buddha shares that it would be impossible, nearly impossible, for you to encounter a being today that hasn't previously been your mother, father, brother, sister, son, daughter, or some other relative. So rather than looking at someone as a stranger, just look at it as a family member that you haven't met yet. And you smile and say hello to them and you'll be at ease and they'll maybe be more at ease too. But if you maintain that perspective of people are strangers, now you're going to approach this very differently and it's going to produce different results for you. So you're going to need to change that perspective and understand that not everybody's going to be interested to talk to you. Some more here from Yusuf. Another question. Once you mentioned that boundaries between us and others is just a desire. So how to let boundaries go if when not putting boundaries, others will act in a bad way? Related question. What will you do if a friend act and behaved a way with you out of his ignorance, not intentionally? Will you advise him not to do that, or just let the behavior go, knowing he is just ignorant? Okay, so this idea in the world about creating boundaries, this is where someone's like, okay, these are my boundaries, and now I need to go around and teach people what my boundaries are. And now if you cross my boundaries, I'm going to get angry and I'm going to get frustrated. This is just craving, desire, attachment. Instead, you just need to understand wise decision making. And if somebody does something that's unwise around you, you just make a decision. Are you going to choose to walk away? Are you going to choose to talk to this person? Are you going to choose to maybe help them see a few things? But your goal in this life isn't to go around and teach other people what they should and shouldn't be doing. So going around and teaching other people your boundaries is just putting your expectations on other people. It's telling people what you're craving for them to do. So going around and creating boundaries isn't going to produce peacefulness, because there's 8 billion people in the world. You can't teach everybody your boundaries. You're going to need to have wise decision making where you go out into the world and you just make wise decisions. So your related question is, if somebody was around me doing something unwise, it depends what it is and what the situation is. If it's a student, usually students are looking for guidance and they're looking for help. So I will, calmly help them to understand. But at no time is my mind going to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed or disappointed or anything like this, right? So you're going to need to understand that your goal isn't to go out into the world and teach other people. If I wasn't a teacher and it wasn't a student, if it was just somebody, like I'll give you an example. One time I was at a dinner that one of my wife's friends and her husband invited us to a dinner. It was her birthday, and there were probably 8 or 10 people there, and they were talking about all kinds of unwholesome things. And I was just sitting there, like, kind of talking to one particular adult, and I was talking to some of the kids and playing with the kids. And as they were talking about all these unwise things, I just ignored it, right? It didn't affect me. They're the ones who were talking about those things. Me stepping in and trying to advise them, like, hey, this is unwise. You shouldn't be talking about that. This is unwholesome. Well, who are you to tell us? Like, if that's what they're choosing to do and that's what they're choosing to talk about, then so be it, right? They haven't asked me for guidance. They haven't asked for input. So there's no reason for me to step in and just tell somebody what they should and shouldn't be doing. So in a friendship role, I'm not going to teach anything. And that's what I did in this particular example. But if it's a student, which I tend to spend quite a bit of time with students, I would typically help them to understand. But I will usually kind of preface it with asking them, are you interested in learning something? And then after I know a student for a period of time, I just know that they're always interested in guidance. But when I'm first getting to know a student, I don't even just step in and share things with them. I ensure that they're open to guidance and understanding guidance. Okay, so let me see what else is here. Yusuf, how to raise your hand. There should be a way in Facebook or in Zoom. I think it's under participants to raise your hand, and then you can, I'll see it and you can open your mic. Julia is asking a question here. Thank you, Teacher David, for sharing your wisdom with us. I often feel like I do not make healthy decisions because I am fearful of disappointing others or not fulfilling obligations. I have a natural inclination to please others that overstretches me. How can I overcome this? So this is a craving to not see other people discontent, right? The mind is attached. It's craving this permanence that I don't want to see other people discontent. You've got to establish right view for yourself, but also establishing right view for yourself is to know that if other people are experiencing something, that they are causing that discontentedness. Your own mind is not causing your own actions, your own choices aren't causing their discontentedness. So you're going to need to let go of any obligations or expectations that other people are trying to place on you. Because this is common because you live in a world where there's lots of unenlightened beings. So people are going to try to put their expectations on you because as they're experiencing painful feelings, they think the way to solve that is to fix you. And they're going to try to put their expectations and their obligations and their boundaries and all these other things on top of you. And you need to be able to see it for what it is. You need to be able to see your own cravings, desires, attachments, but then you need to be able to see others as well so that when they're trying to put it on you, you don't allow that to occur. Sure, they're going to say it. They might end up trying to, get you to adopt their thinking. But you don't have to say, hey, stop putting your expectations on me. You don't have to say that. You can just smile and be like, yeah, I'm going to ignore that. It goes in one ear and right out the other, right? I learned this very early in life. When I was very early in life, I was spending a lot of time at the age of 17 with my guy friends. And my family was like, hey, you're always spending time with your guy friends. Why don't you go get a girlfriend? You need to get a girlfriend. Stop spending so much time with your guy friends. So after I thought about it for a few months, I was like, all right, well, let me go get a girlfriend. So I went and got a girlfriend. And then I started spending time with my girlfriend. And they were like, you spend too much time with your girlfriend. You never spend time, with your guy friends. And I was like, oh my goodness, you can't make these people happy, right? Because you can't make other people happy because they have all these expectations. So at the age of 17 or 18, I decided that I was not going to try to fulfill the expectations of my family whatsoever, that I was going to make my own decisions and they were either going to agree with them or not. And it doesn't matter because it's my life. It's not their life. So other people, they're experiencing anger and frustration and sadness and all these other discontent feelings, but somehow they think that your life should be the same as their life. That's the last thing you're interested in doing, is following somebody whose mind is discontent. So when people are putting their expectations on you, just ignore it. You can just move on with your life. And if they get angry and frustrated because you're not following what their expectations are, then this is their issue. And they can talk to you about it if they like. They can ask you, hey, why aren't you doing what I said? Well, because I'm making my own decisions, right? And we can talk about those as they come up. But the last thing you're interested in doing is adopting other people's expectations. Because let's just say you have 10, 20, 50 people in your life. Can you imagine navigating everybody's expectations? Your life would be a wreck. You would be so stressed and having so much anxiety. Maybe that's where you are right now. You may even have a certain amount of depression, right? Because you're so sad or frustrated because you're not living up to other people's expectations. Just let all that stuff go and realize that that's their mind having craving, desire, attachment. And you would like to not only let go of your own cravings, desires, attachments, but don't adopt others as being your own. Okay, I see some other comments here. Okay, I still have some questions. Can you make me available to speak after the guys here? Okay, Youssef. Thanks for sharing with us, teacher. Just curious as to why you think the Buddha taught in double negatives sometimes. Example, non-ill will with loving kindness. The reason why I think he taught it that way there is because you can see the connection more directly to the 10 fetters. If you look at the 10 fetters, it's personal existence view, doubt, wrong behavior and observances, central desire, and then ill will, right? That's the 5th fetter. So if he would have used goodwill there in that particular teaching, you wouldn't see that connection and draw that connection to the fetter. So he's helping you to see how practicing right intention of non-ill will, it's exact opposite of the pollution or the fetter in the mind. And this is going to be more readily able to help you eradicate it from the mind when you understand it in more detail. Okay. All right. Great questions there. Okay, Youssef, you have some questions. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, teacher. Can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can.
Yeah, I am glad to be here. I will ask a related question to the second double truth, which is right intention. Once I was reflecting about non-self, and then, as you might call it, inside our glimpse, I don't know, came to my mind, which is, if there is no self, that means there is body, there is mind, there is consciousness. To this consciousness, which is mind, this mind is the same as your mind. So to this consciousness, my mind and your mind are the same. So we, me and you, are actually the same, because this mind, which is mine, doesn't belong to me, and your mind doesn't belong to me. So this consciousness will see my mind and your mind on all other beings as the same beings, not different, just in the body maybe, or some common. So you were talking about strangers and to not seeing other people as strangers. So can you help me making a plan or something to put my mind into the situation which will help me to not see others as strangers, but as myself? Because as I said, to this consciousness, my mind and other minds are the same. If you agree here.
Okay, so I heard most of what you said. The audio is not quite clear. But I would share with you that your mind and my mind is not the same. That would be the mind looking at things as being permanent and all one. And this would not be the best way to look at the world, that each individual mind is different and unique. That's the universal truth of impermanence. If we adopt the thinking that every mind is exactly the same, this would be the mind expecting permanence. So while each mind functions similarly in terms of it has the 10 fetters and there's craving, desire, attachment, and all these other things, it would be unwise to think of all the minds as being the same, right? So I don't know what else you might have been sharing in there, but that should help you clear up that. And also, I'd like to go back to something you were asking earlier too, Yusuf, where you're talking about a friend being ignorant. I wouldn't suggest that you think of people in that way either, because the word ignorant tends to be a derogatory and degrading word. I think about that third poison or that third unwholesome root as the unknowing of true reality or misunderstanding or confusion. So yes, while people in the world have misunderstanding and confusion, I don't think of other people as ignorant, because this would kind of take a egotistical view of looking down on people and being degrading and diminishing, where what you would like to do is be more uplifting and look at people in a positive way. Okay, you have some more to ask? Go ahead.
Yes, I did unmute myself by accident. I don't see that all minds are the same, but to this consciousness, which is mind, that your mind and my mind are the same, because my mind doesn't belong to this consciousness, and your mind doesn't belong to my consciousness. So they are the same in a certain way. I will stop here and ask another question. Okay?
Let me answer you there.
Yeah. Okay.
You might be confused, because the mind and consciousness is actually the same thing. The mind and consciousness, the way that the Buddha is using it in his teachings, is all the same thing, that they're not two separate things, and two people's consciousness are completely different. There's not this collective consciousness or this universal consciousness that people talk about sometimes. Each individual mind is unique to itself and has its own challenges, has certain unwholesome roots, certain unwholesome qualities, and certain wholesome qualities. By the time you get to enlightenment, all the unwholesome qualities have been purified, and now the mind only has wholesome qualities. It's been completely purified. But to think that each mind is exactly the same would be unwise.
Okay, thank you. I will ask a question that I posted on the Facebook group, and I see it better to answer it by your directly. So
what I would like to do, Yusuf, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What I would like to do is stay focused on today's class, which we're getting ready to move into the moral conduct and mental discipline section. If you have a question that you asked in the Facebook group, let's discuss it there, rather than using our class time where we can be focused on studying the moral conduct and mental discipline section.
It is related to the practice view. Should I let it on the Facebook group, or can I ask it here?
Yeah, let's move on. And if we have time at the end of class, then you can circle back and ask questions, or you can even stick around after class. But what I would like to do is move into the moral conduct and mental discipline section.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for answering.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm going to check Facebook and YouTube and see if we have any questions there. What is the importance of making it slowly to get out of meditation? That's you too, Yusuf. We'll talk about that another time. You're in YouTube and on Zoom. Okay, let's see. Francis has a question here. Reflecting to your sharing and guidance above. Let's see. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's like actually not even the video. That's another thing. Okay, that was Francis. All right, so it looks like that's everything up until here. So now we're going to move into the moral conduct section, which is about right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is where you're learning about the natural law of karma. Whenever you're studying moral conduct with the teachings of the Buddha, it's important that you don't see it as rules or commandments, or that he's trying to force you or guilt you into doing anything, or even trying to convince you to do anything. Instead, what he's trying to help you to understand is this cause and effect, or action and result, the natural law of karma, because everything you experience is a result of your decisions. So if you lack wisdom about the natural law of karma related to speech, actions, or livelihood, you're going to be causing harm through your speech, actions, or livelihood. And when you put out that harm, it's going to come back to you. So that's why the wisdom section is built around right view and right intention. But now your speech, actions, and livelihood emanates from your right intention. That you're going to need to have the thinking or the thought of renunciation, the willingness to let go, that non-ill will, and the harmlessness. And now you start moving into understanding the moral conduct. Because as long as you're putting out harm, harm is going to come back to you. So your life, your decisions, and your results, this is what's producing any kind of results that you're experiencing. And with a lack of wisdom of the natural law of Gama related to moral conduct, you are going to experience the harm coming back to you. Because you might think you have all the best intentions in the world. You might think you're speaking in all the best ways. But if you haven't learned the natural law of Gama around right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, you haven't fully awoke to the wisdom of what would be wise or what would be unwise. So here, the Buddha is describing in right speech 4 aspects of speech that would be unwise. And all of these are based in craving. That's why he's teaching you to eliminate these. That he's sharing with you, what did it take for him to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's peaceful and joyful? He's not trying to convince you of anything. He's not laying down rules or commandments. He's just showing you this natural law of Gama. And now when you learn it, you can reflect on this and see the truth for yourself. That he's teaching to refrain from lying, slander or gossip, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. That you can see that lying is based in craving. That when you lie, and we've all lied in the past, that there was something you wanted. There was something you were longing, yearning for. And if you told the truth, you weren't going to be able to get that. So therefore, the mind lied. So in order to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, you're going to need to eliminate lying. But also when you've lied, it produces unwholesome results for you. You can independently verify this for yourself, the cause and effect. That people see you as untrustworthy and dependable. Your mind is obsessively trying to figure out what you say to one person versus another. So you would like to eliminate all lying. And then slander or gossip. This is where you're diminishing and degrading other people. And you can see for yourself that where people have done that, there's actually been people that have been murdered over this kind of thing. That's the extreme, that if you go out there and you're damaging someone's reputation, whether it's a person, a company, an organization, or something like this, people are going to feel like you've damaged them and you've harmed them. And now they're going to potentially react in an unwholesome way. And you can even get murdered, right? At the very least, if you're gossiping and slandering people, they're going to be gossiping and slandering you because your friends and family are going to get used to you gossiping and slandering. And when you have your back turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. Sometimes what's going on when someone's gossiping and slandering is the mind thinks that if I diminish this person, then I will look better. There's a certain craving in there. It's kind of like if I put out this person's candle, then my candle will burn brighter. But putting out somebody else's candle doesn't make your candle brighter. Having 2 candles in the room makes the room brighter. So there's no need to diminish others and degrade others through gossip and slander. And then harsh speech is like your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. There's a certain craving. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring, right? That this person's not doing what you want them to do, so you might talk very harsh and aggressive with them in order to fear them into doing things your way. So you're going to need to pay attention to that in order to eliminate your craving in any particular situation. So where you are craving, you'll find it challenging to eliminate harsh speech. But this, remember, is gradual training and gradual practice. So as you're eliminating your attachments slowly but surely, your speech can soften up, and you're going to need to know about this because anytime you're harsh and aggressive and bitter with others, this is just going to come back to you. And you're going to need to eliminate any frivolous speech if you're doing that. This would be like idle chatter, where you're just like yada, 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 just pointless talk, unbeneficial, unpurposeful. So you would like to have clear and concise and purposeful speech that is beneficial. And this will help you to develop in your relationships more readily. And you're not causing harm to others through eliminating these 4 things. But then more specifically, you would like to practice the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. This is a teaching that integrates into right speech, where you learn about speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, you speak gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And I went through these in detail in our previous classes, and also in this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. You can see all the details that I explain each one of these, because you're going to need to dial this in closer and closer. And you can independently verify this, where you can look at conversations that didn't go very well for you, and you can see that you and or the other person wasn't using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. If you miss even one of these, there's the potential that your conversation is going to end in an unwholesome way. But there also are situations that you can verify where your conversation did go well, and you and the other person were practicing these 5 factors, and you didn't know you were practicing them. But because they are the natural laws of existence, this natural law is affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. So when you were practicing these 5 factors, and other people too, you guys had a great and wonderful conversation. But now what you do is you learn what they are, you dial it in closer and closer, and you consciously practice all these 5 factors at any given time, whether it's your speaking or your emails or your text messages, your social media, or any communication that you have whatsoever. So you're going to need to look at this and learn it either through the online videos and podcasts that I share, or through the book or the audio book or something like this, because I taught this in detail in other places. Then there's right action. What right action is helping you to understand and not cause bodily harm through your actions. Because if you're causing harm through your bodily actions, this harm is going to come back to you. And what the Buddha is giving you here are 3 impactful bodily actions that can cause significant harm to other beings, and then this harm is going to come back to you. But he's not giving you an exhaustive list. He's sharing with you to refrain from taking life, from taking what is not given, and refraining from sexual misconduct. Notice he doesn't say don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face. If he gave you an exhaustive list of every single thing that you could ever do to cause harm through bodily actions, this would be exhaustive. And he wouldn't actually be able to give you every single thing, because he wouldn't have been able to say, don't drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and bump into their knees, because there was no planes during the lifetime of the Buddha. He wouldn't have been able to give you an exhaustive list. So he's giving you 3 impactful things. But then if you understand right action, you know that it's unwise to roll your suitcase down the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and bump into their knees, because people are going to get pretty hostile and pretty bitter with you when you do that. So we're going to be exploring right action in more detail in 2 weeks when we study the 5 precepts. The 5 precepts are going to expand upon these 3 here and give you much more detail. The Buddha gives more illuminating language around all of these things. But I'll just kind of point out with sexual misconduct that the Buddha goes into detail with that in the 5 precepts. And he talks about things like having sex with minors, having sex outside of relationships that you're committed to, having sex without consent, things like this, things that are harmful. He never taught that same gender relationships are harmful, because he understood that 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults having sex with each other, they're not actually causing harm to anybody. So if a man and a woman are choosing to have sex with each other and they're in a loyal, loving, consenting relationship, they're not causing harm to anybody at all. And the same thing is true for 2 men or 2 females. So he never described same gender relationships as harmful, because there's no harm that's actually being caused. But today there's people who have taken things and they think that same gender relationships are maybe harmful. So this is how wise the Buddha was, that 2,500 years ago, he understood that same gender relationships aren't causing harm. Today, we have massive numbers of people in the world that don't understand this. But the Buddha was so wise, he understood this 2,500 years ago. Because if you understand the universal truth of impermanence, then you understand that there has never been a time in history where all men had sex with women, or all women had sex with men. There's just never been a time in human history where that has occurred, because that would be permanence. We understand the universal truth of impermanence, that some men would like to have sex with the opposite gender, and some women would like to have sex with the opposite gender. But there's also some men and some women that have sex with the same gender. This is completely normal, and we understand it through the universal truth of impermanence. So if you or people you know prefer same-gender relationships, it's completely normal. You're not doing anything wrong. Other people might get angry because their cravings aren't being fulfilled, but you haven't caused that anger. They're causing it themselves because they're having a craving. They want every man to have sex with a female and every female to have sex with a man. And this just isn't possible. It's never happened through human history, and it never will happen. So we're going to explore these in more detail when we get to the 5 precepts. The Buddha uses very illuminating language to help you understand all of these and others. But just understand what right action is to ensure you're not causing harm through your bodily actions and the way you navigate the world, because any harm you cause is going to come back to you. So then you might study right livelihood, which is the fifth factor of the Eightfold Path. This is how you choose to sustain your life. And the Buddha describes how to sustain your life by not causing harm to other beings, because any harm that you're causing through your livelihood to sustain your own life, this harm is going to come back to you too. So there's these two levels of purification of your livelihood. The first fold of purification is ensuring that you're not having business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. Anytime you're conducting your livelihood around any of these five, then you're causing harm, and this harm is going to come back to you. So you can take each one of these five and independently reflect on it and see the truth for yourself, that if you were to do any of these five, it's causing harm, and this harm comes back to you. So for example, if I was selling drugs on the street corner, I'm causing harm to the community. I'm putting a substance into the community where people are having to steal, they're having doing sexual work, they're getting addicted to the substance just to give me money. And now, because those people are out there causing harm and they're trying to get the substance that I'm selling, now I can get beat up on the street corner. I can get robbed. I can get murdered. I can get arrested. I can get addicted to my own substances. This is all the harm that's coming back to me as a result of selling substances that cause heedlessness. But remember, this is the natural laws of existence. This is beyond any human laws. So human law will, most places in the world, it's illegal to stand on the corner and sell crystal methamphetamine or cocaine or some illicit drug like that. But this is also referring to things like alcohol, that if you understand the natural law of karma, you know that it would be unwise to work as a cashier at a liquor store, for example, because these are places that tend to get robbed and people get beat up and murdered. And at the very least, you're going to be dealing with intoxicated clientele from time to time. And you're not going to be able to get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if the people you're interacting with are intoxicated and you're experiencing getting beat up and potentially murdered in your livelihood. And this is the harm that's coming back to you as a result of the harm that you're putting out. And then as part of that first fold of purification, the Buddha teaches about how you conduct your livelihood, that it would be unwise to scheme, have flattery, hinting, belittling, or pursuing gain with gain. What scheming is like corruption. So let's just say I was a politician. This isn't one of those five livelihoods that we were just talking about. But if I was corrupt in my work as a politician, maybe 10, 15 years into my career, people discover this corruption. And now I find it difficult to be able to get reelected as a politician because I've been causing this harm through corruption. It affects my career. What flattery is like insincere comments to people just to get them to buy things from you, for example. So if you were having this flattery or insincere comments to people just to get them to buy things from you, they're going to see through that, and less people are going to be interested in patronizing your business or anything that you're choosing to do as a livelihood. So your coworkers, your business partners, your customers, they're going to be able to see through those insincere comments. What hinting is not being clear and direct and precise in your work, that you would like to be very clear and concise. If you need to deliver a presentation to some customers or to your boss, you'd like to be clear and concise. And that's what right speech is going to help you to be able to do. Belittling is talking in degrading and diminishing ways towards others, either your coworkers, your business partners, your competition. If you're belittling others, this is going to cause harm. So now, like say you have a customer and you're belittling your competition, this is going to look bad for you. And you're going to find that customers aren't going to be interested in patronizing your business. So you would like to eliminate any of that kind of stuff. Or if you were belittling a coworker, for example, that would cause you difficulties in your work environment. What pursuing gain with gain is this is where you're just doing things for money. And that's all you care about is the money. You don't care about the product or the service that you're involved in. And if you've ever done this kind of thing where you're just showing up to a job for a paycheck, you were probably unmotivated, unenthused. You didn't really care about the work. You dragged yourself to work every single day, even though you were getting paid for this work, because you were just pursuing gain with gain. You just cared about the money and that's it. So what the Buddha is helping you to do with right livelihood is helping you to get to a point where you're enthused and you're motivated and you're encouraged and you have ambition about the work that you're doing. That this word work that it's not a 4-letter word anymore, right? That it's not a bad word, that you enjoy the work that you're doing, that you enjoy contributing to the world through the day-to-day activities that you're doing. And sure, you're sustaining your life and you need a paycheck in order to make money, in order to purchase food and clothing and things like this. But you get to a point where you thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing and it doesn't even feel like work anymore. That's what you would ultimately like to get to. And you might need to change the occupation that you're doing right now. Perhaps right now you feel unmotivated, you feel discouraged in the work that you're doing, and that might not be the correct or appropriate type of work for you, or it might not be the proper company for you to work in, and you might need to change locations or change a particular career to something completely different where you can feel enthused and motivated and encouraged about the work that you're doing. So this is the first fold of purification, but there's other teachings beyond this as well that you will learn as you explore the entire book series that I share. By the time you get to volume 12, chapter 14, that's a place where the Buddha shares all the teachings about right livelihood. So if you're looking to change jobs, or you're in between jobs, or you're looking to get a new job or something like this, you might look at volume 12, chapter 14. That's where you can learn all the teachings about how to select a livelihood where you can be encouraged and enthused and motivated about the work that you're doing. Because if you have to drag yourself to a place and you have to be there 8, 10, 12 hours a day, you're going to feel miserable. You're not going to have a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life. So you're going to need to purify your livelihood so you can feel enthused about the work that you're doing. So this is the moral conduct section, where you can think about right speech as right communication, because during the lifetime of the Buddha, the only thing that was happening was speech. Nowadays, we have text messages, we have chat, we have posts, Facebook posts, social media posts, we have emails. All of your verbal, your text, your chat, your posts, your emails, all of this should be harmless. Because if you went into a job interview and you knocked it out of the park in this job interview using right speech, but they looked at your social media and you were aggressive and hostile and bitter, you may not actually get the job. So you would like to ensure all your communication is harmless. If you're angry and you're frustrated, the last thing you'd like to do is go pound on your keyboard and send an email so that this person can have a piece of your mind, right? Because now you're just putting out harm. You would like to practice the 5 factors of well-spoken speech in all situations. So if you find yourself pounding out a text message or an email, hit save, don't hit send, right? Hit save and come back a few hours or a few days later and decide whether that was wise for you to send and whether or not you should send it or not, because you'll probably either edit it or you may delete it altogether, realizing that it's unwise. It would be not the proper time to communicate in any way whatsoever when you're angry and frustrated and annoyed. Right action is all about not causing harm through your bodily actions. All your bodily actions should be harmless, where you're not causing harm to others. So you can cause other people harm, but you can't cause them discontentedness. What harm is when you're injuring another being's reputation, their material possessions, injuring them physically or something like this. So you can harm an individual's reputation, you can harm their material possessions, you can harm their physical body, but you can't cause them discontentedness. So what we're talking about here is ensuring that you're not causing harm to others by injuring their reputation, their material possessions, or their physical body. And you would like to ensure that you're not causing harm through your speech or your actions or your livelihood, so that you sustain your life through your livelihood in a way that doesn't cause harm to others. So let me know what questions you guys have on the moral conduct section, realizing you're going to need to dive into this more deeply in order to fully understand each aspect of this path. Okay, let's see. It looks like we might have some questions here. Let's see. Let me back up a little bit. All right, so it looks like we have a question from Arvin. Dear David, I notice that I am unable to stay in right view all the time. Sometimes even when I sleep, my dreams shift into non-right view, and even during the day. When I get caught up in things, my perspective shifts again to the personal false identity and all its problems. How do we keep staying in right view? I feel I have to take lots of time out to shift gears. So the fact that you're observing that your mind is not practicing right view, this is really, really good. This is the first step of getting to right view, is that first you need to understand it intellectually. And that's what learning in the classes and in the books and all that kind of stuff is. Learning it intellectually. Now you reflect on it and you realize, whoa, this is really true. Like my mind is causing my own discontentedness. And now you start practicing. Where in the past, we would have just been out there blaming people without knowing anything whatsoever. But now you've got more wisdom and you're noticing like, hey, that's not right view. So now when you see that, you shift your mind and you shift your mind and you shift your mind and you shift your mind. This is what you're going to need to do is in order to deeply soak it in. So the fact that you're seeing that you're not practicing right view is a really good thing. And then you just shift your mind towards right view and you realize, no. I'm not going to blame my kids for this. Or no, I'm not going to blame my life partner for this. This is my own mind experiencing frustration. Where in the past we might have blamed people, now we're choosing to do something different because we understand right view. So you're going to need to shift like this. And this is part of the gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So noticing that your mind isn't in right view is the first step of being able to shift it. So keep working in that direction. In terms of your dreams, you can't control what dreams you have. When you purify your mind more and more, you'll have more and more wholesome dreams, but it's going to take time for you to gradually purify your mind. So whatever dreams you have, when you wake up in the morning, just cut that off and let it go. Realize that it's not true reality. Sometimes our dreams can kind of give us some inclination of what our mind is holding on to. So you noticing that in your dreams you didn't have right view, that's wonderful because now you have wisdom. You know what right view is. You see that that's not right view, and now you practice right view more and more. But you can't control what dreams you have. All you can do is once you're awake, now you can work on controlling your mind to establish right view and let go of anything that might have come up during your dream because it's not actual true reality. We have a question coming in from Robert. Is there a way to gossip positively as long as it is not slander and spoken with a mind of loving kindness, or do we not speak about people unless they are present? So one of the best things to know whether you're practicing gossip or not, because gossip and slander is damaging a person's reputation, is ask yourself, if this person was standing here, would I say this thing? And if the answer is no, I wouldn't say it if they were standing here, then it's gossip, it's slander, it's something that you wouldn't be interested in saying. So you should be able to get to the point where you're never speaking in a way that you wouldn't be comfortable having other people hear. This is where people, like in the public light, they have a hot mic and they're speaking backstage and they're being recorded and they're saying something that they wouldn't otherwise say in front of people. But privately, they're saying it and now they get caught on a hot mic. Where you would like to purify your speech, that no matter what you say, when you say it, it's always wholesome, it's always wise. And that way you're not ever saying anything degrading or disparaging about anybody, and you're only experiencing wholesome results. So if in some situations you talk one way, in another situation you talk another way, you haven't gotten to this permanent mental state where the mind is practicing the same way all the time. You will never hear me ever, privately or publicly, talking in degrading ways about anybody whatsoever. There are situations where, like, an employer might come to you and say, hey, you've been working with this person for a period of time. Can you give me their feedback of how they're doing? Right? And in this situation, you're going to need to maybe talk, but you can talk in a positive and uplifting way. You can say, well, our new team member on the team, while I can see that they're very dedicated, they're diligent, they're really applying effort, and they would like to work really well, where they're challenged is they're having challenges understanding this, right? And you can talk in very positive and uplifting ways, even when you're giving feedback that is going to be helpful for somebody. So you would like to focus on that helpful feedback and that beneficial feedback rather than degrading this person personally. You can talk about qualities that they need to improve, certain knowledge that they need in the job and things like this without degrading them as a person. So you're not degrading people as a person, you're just talking about certain knowledge and skills that they could develop in order to do the job better, for example. So there's no such thing as wholesome gossip, because the definition of slander or gossip is where you're damaging someone's reputation, either them personally, the organization, or the company, or something like this. So you would like to purge all of that so that way you're not damaging others' reputations, and now people won't be doing that to you as well, and you won't experience injuries and maybe possibly murder and these other kinds of things that we can experience. Arvind has some more here too. With regards to right speech, Do our inner words or thoughts on others actually impact them? For example, if we say mantras like, may you be happy, mentally to others, does that actually impact or heal them on an energetic level? Someday that you can speak to plants lovingly and they grow better. So do words have energy to them, or is it only psychological or placebo effect only upon another? So if you're saying the words internally in your mind, it's having an effect on your mind. It's not having an effect on other people. But through now changing your own mind, and now you change the way that you interact with this person, that's going to change your relationship because now you're putting out something better. So for example, I grew up with a lot of resentment towards my mom all through my life. And this was in my mind. And this would come out through my intentions, my speech, and my actions when I'm around her. And we always had a turbulent relationship. But when I started doing loving kindness meditation and transforming my mind, now because I transformed my mind, my intentions, my speech, and my actions transformed when I was around her. And now having transformed those things, now this impacted us in a positive way in our relationship. So that's how these things change, is that your mind is the root. Your mind is the root of everything you're experiencing. So that's why the Buddha's focusing you on purifying your mind, because when you purify your mind and you train your mind to experience wholesomeness, now your intention, speech, and actions will emanate from that wholesomeness. So that's how it affects other people, but not through any kind of mystical, magical, or energetic thing like that. Julia has a question here. Mentally, I see the pattern when I crave. It brings immediate mental distress. Yet the clinging and craving is still so strong the next day with something else. Should I tell myself out loud, you are craving and this is harmful, to retain the mind? Thank you so much. You can do that. You can definitely talk to the mind. This is where it's helpful to see the body as one thing, the mind as something separate, and then there's this third thing called the person. So the person is talking to the mind and trying to help the mind learn. And sometimes saying this out loud or in your own mind can be helpful. So feel free to do those kinds of things where you talk to yourself and kind of educate the mind on what's going on and what would be wise. Because some of these cravings are so strong. There's one particular craving that took me many years to eliminate. I kept chipping away and chipping away and chipping away and chipping away at it more and more. But it took multiple years to get rid of it. And you're going to probably have cravings like that too. So the fact that you're seeing the cravings and you know that they're producing discontentedness and you're actively working to eliminate them, that's what it means to be on the path. Being on the path isn't learning something and snapping your fingers and implementing it right away. It's, hey, I've got this wisdom. I see the true reality of it. And now I'm going to practice it. And there's going to be this slow, gradual training to gradually wear away that particular craving. The Buddha talks about eliminating these things like a digging tool, that if you had a wooden handle and you were digging with this tool, each day you're wearing away the wood on the handle, but you don't know how much wood you're wearing away each day. But by the time that you've used this wooden handle so much that it needs to be replaced, you're going to know that. You're not going to know how much wood wore away each day, but you're going to know when it needs to be completely replaced. The same thing is true with these cravings. That each day, you're not going to know how much of it you're wearing away, but when it's completely gone, you're going to know that because you're no longer going to get angry or frustrated or irritated related to that particular craving. So what you do is you keep your breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity gradually going, where you're training your mind with that, which we're about to talk about here with the mental discipline section. And then with the mental discipline section, you're cutting off and cutting off and cutting off in the present moment. You're restraining the mind and you're wearing away these cravings little by little, but you're not going to know how much each day. So just keep being consistent and dedicated and diligent with it. This is where you need to have confidence in the Buddha, confidence in his teachings, confidence in the community, confidence in your teacher, and confidence in your own ability to get to enlightenment, that you just gradually chip away and chip away and chip away. And that confidence, that dedication, and that diligence will see you through even the toughest, most difficult, most challenging craving, because you're going to probably have a few that take you more than a week or a month or a year even to eliminate. Like I said, there was a one particular craving that took me multiple years to get rid of, and I'm sure you're going to have some of those as well. Robert's asking some more questions here. Is there a way to, I'm sorry, that just kind of, there must be a reply. Okay, thank you. The context of speaking in a way that if they were present, it would still be appropriate clarifies it quite a bit. Yeah, I think that'll be really helpful for you there, Robert. Okay, so that's everything from there. So let me check YouTube and Facebook and see if we have anything coming in. Not seeing anything there. So now let's move into the mental discipline section. And remember, I'm just giving you an overview here because I've already taught it in detail at the beginning of the group learning program. This is just kind of like a refresher because you're going to need to visit this multiple times in your journey to enlightenment. There were times where I was actively looking at this over and over and over and over again and dialing it in closer and closer and closer. So you're going to need to do that too. So here, I'm just going to give you an overview of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And if you've learned this already in depth, this will be a good refresher for you. If you haven't learned this with me before, this will be an introduction to the mental discipline section, but then you're going to need to go and either read and or look at the online classes where I've taught this in the past. Because at the beginning of this group learning program, I taught 3 individual classes, 1 class on wisdom, 1 class on moral conduct, and 1 on mental discipline. And you can find those on our YouTube channel. There's a playlist for this entire group learning program where all the classes are listed there. So you would be able to easily access it and then learn anything that you might need to learn in more detail. Because remember, you're on your own independent journey here. I'm just pointing out like a tour guide to be able to help you understand what it is that you need to learn and understand. But then it's up to you to investigate that and examine it more closely. So this is the words of the Buddha on right effort. And typically what I do is read through this and help you understand it. But what I'm going to do is just help you to understand what he's teaching, because he's teaching these 4 aspects of right effort, where you apply the effort to prevent unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind, where you apply the effort to abandon any unwholesome mental states that are currently in the mind, that you apply the effort to produce unarisen wholesome mental states to come into the mind, and you apply the effort to maintain wholesome mental states that are currently in the mind. So I've got some examples here, but what is unwholesome and wholesome within your own mind is going to be unique to you. But think about this first aspect of right effort as, I suspect that you aren't thinking about killing another human being. This is probably the farthest thing from your mind. And what the Buddha is saying is anytime there's an unwholesome quality that is not currently in your mind, you're going to need to prevent that from ever coming into the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to prevent that. And here's just one example, but there's other things that are not currently in your mind right now that you're going to need to apply the effort to ensure that that doesn't come into the mind. Then the second aspect of right effort is any unwholesome qualities that are currently in the mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate those out of the mind. And I've got a few examples here that you're going to need to understand what these are, and whenever those are arising in your mind, to eliminate them out of the mind by applying effort. But there's other unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind too. These may not actually be in your mind, but some of these are, and there's going to be others as well. So you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate the unwholesome qualities. Then you're going to need to apply the effort to arise wholesome qualities in the mind. There are certain wholesome qualities that you're going to learn about, like generosity and compassion, that these are not currently in your mind, perhaps. And you're going to need to apply the effort to bring those into the mind in order to cultivate the mind and bring it to fully enlightened, where the mind is actually enlightened. Because if the mind was selfish, meaning it wasn't generous, then you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment. Or if your mind didn't have compassion, it was lacking compassion. Maybe you were indifferent to other people's difficulties and struggles. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring this compassion in. Then there's certain wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. I've got a few examples here. We're going to be talking about these mental qualities when we get to chapter 14 in the book, that we're going to talk about what's called the Brahma Viharas, which is loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. These are wholesome qualities that you're going to need to cultivate in the mind. So you're going to need to apply the effort to do that. So this mental quality of loving kindness, this is where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You probably have that to a certain extent in your mind, that you're interested in seeing all beings be well. But what the Buddha is talking about this fourth aspect of right effort is that you're going to need to maintain this quality. You're going to need to bring it to full growth and full perfection in the mind. Because while you have loving kindness in some situations, there's other situations where you're angry and you're bitter and you're harsh and maybe you're aggressive or hostile towards others. And that's because you haven't fully brought to full growth and perfection the loving kindness in your mind. So while you have this wholesome quality there, it hasn't been brought to full growth and perfection. So that's why you need this right effort to apply the effort to bring this quality in others to full growth and full perfection. So you're going to learn how to understand the mind through right mindfulness of what are the unwholesome qualities, what are the wholesome qualities, and essentially what you're going to need to do with right effort is kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. And that's going to be accomplished through right effort, applying the effort. That these unwholesome qualities aren't going to just naturally be eliminated from the mind, and these wholesome qualities aren't going to just automatically arise in your mind. You're going to have to apply the effort to either eliminate the unwholesome or arise the wholesome. Then there's right mindfulness. Here, the Buddha is describing in right mindfulness the 4 foundations of mindfulness. But when you first start learning mindfulness, you might think about it as awareness of mind. That in the unenlightened state, we tend to go through the world without awareness of our mind and what's going on in our mind. That we're not aware of our thoughts, our feelings, and different things that are going on in the mind. So you're going to need to cultivate this awareness of your mind. And that's where the right concentration comes in. The meditation is going to help you to be able to cultivate awareness of mind. And this is why we meditate at the beginning of each individual class. But then you're going to need to get into right mindfulness more deeply, where you cultivate the 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you're aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. This is what the Buddha is describing to you is the life cycle that discontentedness takes as it's arising. So that if you have a craving, desire, attachment in your mind, and you take in some contact through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, or the mind, based on your cravings, you're going to see that contact as agreeable or disagreeable. And now if you see it to be agreeable, you'll get those pleasant feelings. But if you see it as disagreeable, you'll get those painful feelings. But before these conditioned feelings are formed in the mind, there's going to be some bodily sensation associated with this. Those pleasant feelings, usually it's tingling across the shoulders, the back of the neck, up over the head. You might feel this tingling. With the painful feelings, you might notice some like tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, some heat in the face, maybe some pressure in the skull. This is associated with anger or frustration or agitation that's arising. So you're going to need to build this awareness of these bodily sensations, because you can cut it off and let it go, where you preserve the mind and you protect the mind. If you can be aware of the mind in these arising bodily sensations, you can cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation. And now you've protected the mind, that the mind never experienced the feeling of anger. You're not suppressing the feelings. Instead, you're cutting them off and letting them go before they actually become a feeling. And this is like an early warning system where your mind's like, I'm going to form a conditioned feeling. I'm going to form a conditioned feeling. I'm going to form a conditioned feeling. And there's these bodily sensations alerting you to that. And what you do is you say, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. You're not going to form that conditioned feeling. This is how you rewire the mind and you train the mind to have mental discipline. That rather than allowing the mind to form the conditioned feeling, then it's just going to dwell in that conditioned feeling. It's just going to be angry or frustrated or bitter. So where you can develop your mindfulness more and more, where you're alerted to those bodily sensations. And when you see the mind getting ready to form a conditioned feeling, you cut it off and let it go. And you've now preserved the mind. It's kind of like if you were taking a boat from the USA to Australia. If you're out in the middle of the ocean and this water is flooding into your boat, you've got a real problem to deal with, because you've got to get this water out of the boat. But if you can prevent the water from ever coming into the boat, now you've preserved your ability to travel safely from America to the Australia. But if you allow this water to come in, you've got a real problem to deal with. So that's what right mindfulness is helping you to do, is clue you in to those early warning system that, hey, the mind's about to form a conditioned feeling. You can cut it off and let it go. but you need to develop this over time. It's going to take you time to develop this ability to be able to see the bodily sensations in each situation. So if it does become a feeling, cut it off and let it go there. You might need to redirect the mind. Like say you're sitting in front of the TV and you're watching the news and you're noticing some frustration arising, you can redirect the mind. Turn it off, get up and go for a walk. Don't just dwell in that frustration, because that's just allowing the mind to stay wired with this discontentedness. You'd like to break that up and let it go. So if you don't eliminate it as a feeling, now it's going to affect the condition of the mind. This is why you've been angry for multiple hours or days or a week or two. You've been angry or irritated or annoyed or agitated because we didn't understand this. We didn't understand that there's these bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind. And then if you don't cut it off as the condition of the mind, it's going to feed and form this mental object. In this example, it's ill will. So the mental object is this deeply rooted container in the mind where the mind's holding on to this ill will. And you would like to shut this down where you're no longer feeding these mental objects. You shut it down at the bodily sensations and cut it off and cut it off and cut it off and cut it off. Realizing that you're not going to be perfect at this, that it's going to take gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress, that you will experience some conditioned feelings on your way to enlightenment. But more and more, you would like to cut it off as a bodily sensation so you can preserve and protect the mind, all the while you're breaking up these mental objects and uprooting them out of the mind. The mental objects are those 10 fetters. All of those 10 fetters are mental objects. And there's certain tools and techniques to break those up and get them out of the mind. That's the purification of the mind that you're doing, that you're eliminating these mental objects out of the mind. Then there's right concentration, where the Buddha is describing to you the results of having practiced the entire Eightfold Path. But in terms of practicing right concentration, this is developing a daily meditation practice and developing singleness of mind. This is why we focused on breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation at the beginning of the group learning program. And you would like to be building this up day by day by day. So when you're coming to class, of course, we're meditating, but in order to see the real results, you're going to need to be practicing meditation on your own and gradually building up to 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more, realizing that that takes 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to. And then the way you practice right concentration is not only with meditation, but with singleness of mind in daily life. Whereas if you're washing the dishes, you just focus on washing the dishes. Or if you're in a business meeting, you're just focused on the business meeting. And anytime you see your mind move off of the present moment of what you're currently doing, you cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to whatever you're doing. So if you're in a business meeting and your mind's wandering, bring it back and bring it back and bring it back. Same thing if you're washing dishes and your mind's wandering, you bring it back and bring it back and bring it back. What you're doing is it's like a piece of wood and a steel rod, and you're dragging this steel rod back and forth over the wood over and over and over and over and over again, and you're getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the groove, and you're creating this groove. But when you first start grinding the steel rod back and forth, it's going to be bouncing around quite a bit because you don't have a groove yet. But if you practice singleness of mind in meditation more and more, you're going to get more and more concentration. Just like this steel rod's going to get a deeper and deeper groove in the wood. And when it bounces out of the groove, you're going to know it. You're going to be able to easily bring it back. But if you grind this steel rod back and forth enough, your groove is going to get deep enough where it won't ever pop out of that groove any longer. And the mind is the same way, that if you practice meditation and you practice singleness of mind in daily life, eventually you'll get to the point where the mind never pops out, that it's always in this concentration where you can have focus and clarity of mind. So this is how you practice right concentration. So right effort is taking the initiative to eliminate certain unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities. Right mindfulness is having awareness of mind and practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Right concentration is practicing meditation and developing singleness of mind so that you're practicing breathing mindfulness meditation, loving kindness meditation, practicing singleness of mind in daily life. And then your mind's going to start experiencing the jhanas, which are these preliminary phases that the mind experiences on its way to the first stage of enlightenment. There's 4 stages of enlightenment. The 4th stage is when the mind is actually enlightened and there's no more discontentedness. But on the way to that, you will experience these preliminary phases of the jhanas, which we talk about at different times. But this is just an overview of the Eightfold Path, helping you to understand each individual factor. And you're going to need to learn this in a lot of detail to be able to practice it. But as you do, you're going to see that the struggles and difficulties of life gradually start to diminish over time. There's a certain amount of work and effort that you need to build up your practice. But then over time, as you're practicing it more and more, you'll see that you'll have the wisdom that you need to deal with any particular issue or challenge that you're facing. And that just is through the gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So we have some questions coming in here. Feel free to let me know what questions you guys have by putting those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So Brent has got a question here. I've been practicing letting go in my meditation and practicing letting go in my daily life as often as possible, reminding myself of relinquishment as often as possible. Sometimes a lot of stuff is let go of. Is there ever a time when you could let go of too much? Nope. If you're letting go, this is wonderful, right? Early in practice, Brent, there's so much stuff there. It's like standing on the top of a garbage heap, right? We've been piling up this garbage for so many years, and you're standing on top of this garbage heap and you start clearing things off, and you think that you've cleared off a lot, but you drop down onto more trash. And then you clear that off and you drop down onto more trash, and you clear that off and you drop down. So you're going to be letting go of the pollution in the mind, right? You're not letting go of things necessarily physically. There's some things you might need to let go of physically, but like you can have a mobile phone, you can have a computer, you can have these kinds of things, but you just need to train your mind to let go, that it's not holding on to them, wanting them to be permanent. So you don't have to eliminate relationships. You don't have to eliminate possessions. There is the ability to do some of that, and you probably will need to do some of that because we tend to accumulate relationships that aren't necessarily beneficial. We tend to accumulate certain material possessions that aren't beneficial. So if we start purging some of those things, you'll find your mind has less opportunity to grab onto things. But ultimately, when your mind is fully transformed and you're not holding on to things, craving permanence, you'll have lots of relationships. You'll have lots of different things that you'll be able to do in the world, but you'll do it without craving, desire, attachment. But there's no such thing as letting go too much, because your mind needs to let go of all these things. But understand that when your mind's having craving, desire, attachment, it's on one side. And when you let go, it's going to tend to swing to the other side, where the mind is now indifferent and it could kind of care less. And you might even feel some dullness and lethargic condition over there. And that's not the middle either. So you're going to need to let that go and now kind of swing back. It's kind of like a pendulum, that you're not just letting go of cravings and going right to the middle and practicing perfectly, that you're letting go of cravings and the mind kind of overshoots the middle. And now the mind's kind of indifferent and kind of, lackluster, kind of those kinds of things. So you kind of need to fine tune the mind more and more as you're getting closer and closer to the middle. So Yusuf has a question here. Yes, Yusuf. I'll just say yes to that. We don't need to talk about that here in class. Okay. So I'm not seeing any questions anywhere else. So what I'll do is just thank all of you guys for coming to today's class, and remind you that next week we're going to be in the chapter 6 of this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is a very short chapter. It's probably going to take me all of about 20 or 30 minutes to teach it to you. And then I'm going to open up to any and all questions that you guys have related to that or anything else. So take your time in reading that chapter. But this week, if you haven't already, be sure that you dive into chapter 5, because this is a really meaty chapter. And take your time, read 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, step back, reflect on it and think about it. Read another 10, 15, 20 minutes a day and step back and think about it and chew on it. And where you need help, you can reach out through the Facebook group, through asking questions in class, through sending a private message, or scheduling personal guidance, and I'll be able to help you. So you're going to need to know this Eightfold Path really close inside and out. And this was just an overview to help you. But other classes and other resources, I go into a lot of detail with this. So thank you all for today. Thank you for your questions. Next week is chapter 6. This Wednesday, we're going to be in the second part of our 4-part series where we're learning Buddhist chanting. So if you'd like to learn Buddhist chanting, you can come to the class live or you can listen to the replay. And we also do meditations and open up to any questions that you have on Wednesday as well. So perhaps we'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.